The manufacturers of RCA Whirlpool home appliances, including laundry equipment, ranges, refrigerators, freezers, and air conditioners. The Whirlpool-Seeger Corporation, St. Joseph, Michigan Division, where automatic washers and dryers are made at the rate of several thousand per day, presents Work Simplification. The very nature of our products is to simplify the housewife's work. However, this picture concerns industrial office operations. The improvement story that you are about to see was developed from a group of office management personnel such as this in a work simplification training conference. Here is the 5-step pattern. Select a job, get the facts, challenge every detail, develop better methods, and install improvements. Let's see how it applies to the procedure for ordering books or magazines for the division library in the training department. The improvement was so successful that it was extended to all such purchases in a division. But I'm getting ahead of the story. Step number 1 is to select a job to improve. This is Larry Brandt, the Director of Training for the division, who is vitally involved in this procedure. Larry tells me that originally Mr. Howard Liffick, Manager of Industrial and Public Relations, and Mr. M.R. Dennison, Director of Purchases, chose this procedure for improvement because it seemed like a long, tedious, and expensive process to go through for such minor purchases. Larry chose a pretty potent team to help him tackle this problem. First, there was Howard Liffick, since he approved all of these purchases as head of the department. M.R. Dennison, Denny, because his purchasing department did a lot of the work of ordering books and magazines. Bob Schultz was the buyer who actually handled these orders. And Ryan Patzer, the Supervisor of Accounts Payable in the accounting department, since he's the man who takes care of the payment of the order. Now we're ready for step number 2, to get the facts, chart the old method. The project team is at work getting the facts. The tool that they are using is one designed for paperwork, the Systems Analysis Chart. Let's take a look at their chart of the old procedure. That seems to be a lot of work to go through just to subscribe to a magazine or even to order a book. All of those forms are used, and each symbol on the chart represents different elements of work. Suppose we follow it through, step by step. First, the vendor's order form was read by the training director, and he decided on ordering the book or magazine. This is the old procedure in action. Larry decided on making the purchase and gave the order to his secretary, Miss Eleanor Brown. Eleanor typed the required information on the vendor order form. Next, a 3-part purchase requisition of the snap-out type was made out. This is what the form looked like with the copies detached. After the purchase requisition was typed, it was clipped to the vendor's order form. Of course, Larry had to sign both the order and the requisition, and then it had to be approved by the Manager of Industrial and Public Relations. This meant a fast trip to the mailroom for sorting and a regular company mail service. And then on to the personnel building, where Mrs. Rosemary Foch gave the order to Howard for approval. If the order was not approved, it went back to the training department for information. This happened about only once in 100 orders, in which case travel had to be retraced. And the disapproval was noted. I don't believe that Larry was happy about the rejection. If the order was approved, it was sent to the purchasing department in plant number 1, where a purchase order number was assigned by the buyer, Bob Schultz, who then signed the requisition. The purchase order itself was an 8-part form, also of the snap-out type. Here is a sample of the form with the copies detached. Now we see Miss Judy Murphy, the purchasing department typist who makes out all purchase orders, typing our particular order. After the purchase order was filled in, a memorandum in 2 copies was issued on the standard green memorandum paper. Mrs. Betty Martin, the buyer's secretary, typed the memo to the accounting department as authority to issue payment. The purchase requisition had to be separated. The original was filed in the purchasing department. The second copy was returned to training where it was filed, and the third copy was destroyed since it was not used. Betty separated the copies. The memo copy stayed with the original requisition. Bob, as the buyer, signed both the memo and the purchase order. Final approval was then made by Denny as the Director of Purchases. The 2 sets of papers, which were 10 copies in all, were returned to the buyer's secretary for disposition. The memorandum copy was stapled to the number 3 copy of the purchase order, and both were filed in the purchasing department. The original memorandum was stapled to the number 4 purchase order, and together with the original and the number 2 copy of the order was sent to the accounting department. The number 8 copy was placed in temporary file for follow-up. 7 was destroyed since it was not used. 6 went to the receiving department to await shipment, and the number 5 copy returned to the training department for information and filing. Off we go to the mailroom. Eventually to the accounting department, where Ryan Patzer, supervisor of accounts payable, okayed the order for payment. The purchase order copy number 4 and original memo were filed in accounting. A check was then issued, clipped to the number 2 purchase order, and together with the original were sent to the vendor. Here are these final operations being completed by Mrs. Barbara Teisler. What a torturous procedure to go through just to obtain a $3 magazine subscription. That's enough to make anyone frown and turn on the red light, just as Willie Save has. Well, now that we have the facts, we're ready for step number 3, to challenge every detail. To do this, the questioning technique can be used. The what and why, where, when, who and why, and finally how and why, to try to eliminate, combine, change, and simplify the procedure. Here is the team doubling their efforts to find a better way. Looks like they have the questioning attitude all right. They must be making progress. Step number 4 is to develop better methods from possibilities discovered in challenging. Willie Save, with his stoplight of the mind, still has the red light on. That change of expression must mean that the team has developed a better method. Let's take a look at the new procedure. That seems to be much shorter, doesn't it? As before, we begin with the vendor's order. It is read and decided to make the purchase. This time the order is typed and sent directly to the vendor. After the order is filled by the vendor and his invoice in duplicate received, the training director signs to acknowledge receival. Larry signs the original invoice only. Then it is taken directly to the accounting department across the hall. where Ryan okays the invoice for payment. A check is issued, clipped to the invoice copy, and mailed to the vendor while the original is filed. Barbara applies the finishing touches to wind up the new procedure. That looked fast. No wonder our friend Willie Save is smiling and has the green light on. Here's the systems analysis chart of the old way. Compare it with the new procedure. These are the savings involved. Number 1, material. The old procedure required 15 different pieces of paper, 14 of which were originated at our plant. By eliminating the unnecessary forms, and some are pretty hard to get out, the new procedure uses only 4 pieces of paper, just one of which is originated by us. This amounts to a reduction of 73%. The forms eliminated were the 3-part purchase requisition, the 8-part purchase order, and the 2-copy memorandum. Here is the volume of paper used in the former procedure in 1 year. This is a year's supply in the new. Let's compare the two. Travel of the forms between buildings was reduced by 79%. They traveled slightly over 1 mile or 5,300 feet between departments in the old way. The new requires about 1,100 feet. The work elements were reduced from 49 to 10, which amounts to a reduction of 80%. Eliminated were the approval of the department head, since he rejected only about 1 in 100, and all of the work of the purchasing department. Each of these people performed some part of the work in the old way: the training director, his secretary, the mail boy, the manager of industrial relations, the director of purchases, the buyer, his typist, his secretary, the accounts payable supervisor, and his secretary. Here they are. Only these remain in the new: the training director and his secretary, the accounts payable supervisor and his secretary. Since no one lost his or her job as a result of the improvement, but were freed for more productive work, it is difficult to assign an accurate dollars and cents value. However, a conservative estimate amounts to approximately $1,300 per year. Finally, we're ready for the payoff. Step number 5, to install the improvement. Since all departments involved were represented by members of management on the team, the improved procedure was installed immediately, and we are now enjoying its benefits, as reflected on the happy faces of the team members. This is not the end, but a beginning. It indicates a new horizon of possible improvements in our operations which can benefit everyone: our company, our employees, our families, our community, and our customers.